How extraordinary has the litigation spree between the state of Minnesota and the Trump administration become? So much so that Attorney General Keith Ellison's office maintains a public-facing litigation tracker just to keep tabs on it all. Dozens and dozens of cases. Ellison says he's standing up for Minnesota laws and to protect billions of dollars that support vital programs. His critics see him as too eager to pick legal fights. Back at the Capitol, the Attorney General is hoping to bolster a Medicaid fraud control unit. That request is before the Legislature in the session's final month. And a long-shot bid to impeach Ellison fell flat this week.
Some accountability for the multi-billion-dollar fraud scandal. This is what we can do.
This is exactly the kind of political stunt that has taken over our politics and just black-pilled an entire generation of kids.
Just some of the topics we'll get into today as we welcome Attorney General Keith Ellison back to Politics Friday. Good to have you in person.
Hey there, Brian. Good to be with you.
So I know you had your name on, or at least Minnesota's name on, a bunch of cases involving the Trump administration, but I wasn't aware that it's up to 62 separate litigation fronts. That's over 15 or so months. Is that sustainable?
Well, we have a staff dedicated to protecting Minnesota, and as long as the president is trying to take money away from us that he's not legally entitled to take, violate our rights, take away, we're going to fight against it. And, we're just going to continue to do that. So far, because we have sued the Trump administration, we have protected over $4.3 billion at least, probably more, but we want to be conservative and be able to show people the numbers. So if we didn't do it, we'd be down that much in terms of state resources. So we kind of have to.
I know you're going to want to say all of them, but which case or a few cases do you see as the most pivotal or maybe emblematic of this?
Well, they're all important, but I'll just name three. Birthright citizenship is a fundamental issue of who belongs and who doesn't. We had to be involved in that. The president is trying to violate the 14th Amendment through his executive order.
And that's before the Supreme Court right now.
Right. It was argued a few weeks ago, and even conservative justices took the federal government to task on their positions. That's the one where Trump showed up to eye down or stare down the justices as they were ruling against him. They haven't issued the ruling yet, but they were asking very critical questions. So that's one. It has to do with the fundamental issue of who belongs in America. And the United States government, but when we passed and ratified the 14th Amendment, said anybody born here, it does belong. Mm-hmm. And the Trump administration says they don't. So we're going to battle
Expect
that
that
out.
Decision by June. Okay, what are the other couple that you've got your eye on?
The tariff one, we did win that. There was an issue. There was a ruling issued where the Trump administration was found to be in the wrong. And, they had collected literally, I don't know, something like $1 trillion.
It's still a question of how to get that money back into who, right?
That is a very live question. It's one that we're in the middle of. But it was a basic issue. It combined a few issues. One issue was the separation of powers. The Congress has the power to tax and do tariffs, not the president. The president cannot declare a fake emergency and do it. The Supreme Court said so. We were right. So when people say, Keith, you're suing Trump too much, I'm like, on the tariff case, because the Supreme Court said we were right on that one. And this is a very conservative court. So for them to rule in the state's favor against Trump is actually quite extraordinary. And then, and so those are just two, mm-hmm. but there are a great many more than that. And then there's not only what the Trump administration is doing, but there's what they're not doing as well. So, for example, just this week, a jury in New York, together with Minnesota lawyers from the Attorney General's office fighting alongside other states, a jury found that Live Nation Ticketmaster was a monopoly and was illegally using their market dominance to drive up prices and control everybody. Well, the Trump administration bailed out earlier this year on a sweetheart deal that was and sold out the people of the United States very cheap on a weak settlement agreement. We said, we're not taking that. We're going to trial. We went to trial and we won. And it was on a bipartisan basis.
And again, that one is not fully resolved. There's still question as to how those folks who were maybe...
Well, some things are resolved. The fact that Live Nation was in the wrong and violated the law. But the money part, we're going to have to fight over. But my point is, there again, the Trump administration is not, that wasn't against them. It was against Live Nation Ticketmaster, but they bailed on the American public early, and we kept fighting along with our Republican colleagues on that matter. So not only are they doing things there that are illegal, they're not doing things that they should do, which is to fight to protect the American economy.
Okay, of the ones where Minnesota is the defendant,
Right.
are there any where you feel like you've been dealt maybe a losing hand?
I can't think of any. I mean, look, bottom line is whether we're on the Medicaid fraud stuff or the Medicaid money or even the transgender stuff, we're standing up for people's rights. I believe in liberty and justice for all. I will not participate in the scapegoating of any group of Minnesotans. I don't care if they're farmers. I don't care if they're veterans. I don't care if they're transgender people. All deserve the protection of the law, and I will provide it as long as I'm the Attorney General in this state.
How much is the legal expense in all of these, and will you be asking the legislature for supplemental money to help offset that?
We're asking the legislature for supplemental money to expand our Medicaid fraud
And
prosecution.
we'll get to that, but specifically on these cases against the Trump administration involving Trump.
I don't think we're asking them for more money on that other than, the regular, cost of living increases. But what are the costs? I'd say if you have salary and everything all in for one person, it might be maybe $250,000.
For all of them?
Well, no, for maybe, for each of them.
Okay.
It may be a little more, a little less, but it's not just salary. We're not paying that much, but, benefits and everything. So they probably cost us about $1 million to keep that litigation going, but we're getting back $4.3 billion, which is, I think, a good bargain for the people of the state of Minnesota.
One more of those lawsuits that have been getting a lot of public attention as it relates to Alex Preddy and Renee Good, those fatal shootings by federal authorities and the investigations into them. Has any progress been made in unlocking the evidence that the state wants from the feds?
The progress is the fact that we have filed a civil lawsuit, the state of Minnesota, together with the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, together with the BCA. We have filed a lawsuit, and that case is going along the normal course. I want everybody listening to your show to know that this is extraordinarily rare, because whenever there is an officer-involved shooting, everybody understands that there must be a fair, independent investigation, and then a fair decision must be made whether to charge or not charge, or go to the grand jury or not. In this particular case, the federal government has told us we won't give you the file. We will not give you the bullets, the car, the gun, all of the evidence that has been collected. We won't share it with you, and so we are going to court to make them share it with us.
And might that lawsuit kind of stop short of a decision, or has it renewed talks at all with the federal government about releasing some of that information?
My earnest wish is that we could just get into some talks to get this information.
Do you know with certainty who the agents involved in both shootings were?
Yes.
Okay, and so you think that you could potentially take action if the evidence was there?
Emphasis on the word potentially, but we've got to we owe it to the public, we owe it to the people who are potential defendants, because no decision about that has been made, to get the whole file, look at the whole file, evaluate the evidence in the law, and then make a decision. We don't want to jump the gun. We want to make sure that we look at the whole file and make a call. So, yes, we do have confidence that we know who they are, and we believe that justice requires that we look at the whole file and make a decision based on the whole file.
Could you assess how far down the track you are so people might be watching when? What? We've seen some prosecutors in Hennepin and Ramsey County this week take some steps forward on potential prosecutions. They might be asking, when might there be something in these two fatal shootings?
Well, people should look at the fact that the action was taken this week as a sign that we are committed to justice. They should. But it's impossible. No responsible prosecutor is ever going to say exactly this day or that. We don't know. We at least have got to get some kind of a ruling on the lawsuit we filed to get the files on the Preddy and the Good case and on the Social Solis cases, who is the man who survived, but who was also shot in the back, and that the federal government had to dismiss the case with prejudice because they lied. The agents lied.
I referenced those cases that Ramsey County Attorney John Choi, who is investigating what he says is a kidnapping, and Hennepin County Mary Moriarty, who charged an ICE agent with felony assault. Are you expecting more of those kind of cases to crop up?
I will say yes, and the reason because you said the word expecting. So I've heard so many outrageous things that I would not be surprised at all if there were more of those.
Are you involved in any of those types of situations?
I'm involved in all of those situations. I mean, either on a very light touch of just being available to consult, or in some cases being involved. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office and the Attorney General's Office have a letter of understanding where we're working together on these matters.
All right, let's shift to the Capitol, and I'll get to your legislative push in a few minutes, but I first wanted to ask about something that happened this week. Republicans in the House tried to advance an impeachment resolution against you and Governor Tim Walz. What do you make of it?
I think they are using official resources to advance an electioneering strategy.
One of the things that did come up at the hearing that I want you to address, this is Representative Ben Davis, the lawmaker seeking your removal, and he was referencing Feeding Our Future, the fraud scheme.
Again, the people's lawyer met with suspects in his official capacity as Attorney General, then pledged to give money to his campaign. He then offered to run interference against state agencies investigating the fraudsters, even going as far as texting his staff during the meeting to look into this. And then days later, he received maxed out donations from the network. When directly asked by a U.S. Senator this last February, the Attorney General denied taking their money, yet the records show otherwise.
Pretty serious allegations that you lied to Congress, did you?
No, this is a false statement. It's completely untrue. And again, it's just first of all, the statement that he made is untrue and garbled. You know, he's
what is he missing in that argument?
Well, number one, if anyone listens to the tape, and the tape is available for anybody to listen to, they offer me campaign donations, which I turned down on the tape. So that's there. Now, some other people, not people in the room, did offer campaign donations that I didn't know about. When it became to our attention that this was from a bad source, we returned the money to the proper sources, not to the fraudsters, but to the federal government, which has a fund for such things. So those donations are all returned. And then he makes it somehow bad for me to meet with constituents. These people represented themselves as business people who were having red tape problems with the government. Let me just tell you, this week, I have met with several community groups. I don't run background checks on people I meet with. In this particular situation back in December 2021, these people represented themselves as business people who had a problem with red tape and working through the government. I said I'd listen to them, and that's what I did. I went back to my office, and I learned that, these people are a real problem, and therefore we worked cooperatively to make sure that some of them were criminally prosecuted. That's the truth. That's what the record shows. Now, notice how he says, he got money from the network. Nobody in the meeting, to my knowledge, gave me a campaign donation. And in the meeting, I said, no, this is not an official side meeting. This is an official side meeting. It's not a campaign meeting. And I don't want to discuss electioneering at all. But I meet with people all the time. I didn't get any campaign donations from anyone in the room that I'm aware of. Any campaign donations I got from people who were connected to Feeding Our Future, they were sent to the proper authorities, and my office cooperated fully in the prosecution of these people. This is just a lie.
What about his run interference line in there that you had your office?
It's fundamentally untrue. And he says I sent a note to somebody in my office. While in the meeting, yes, I did, to find out what was going on. Mm-hmm. These people are making claims. I need to figure out what the truth is. So I asked my staff, what's going on here? My staff, not anyone else's, right? And my staff, when I got back to my office, said, this is who these people are, we believe. And then shortly after that, search warrants went out. And then that following September 2022, indictments came out. And all throughout, my office has been working with the Department of Education to help the federal authorities prosecute these people.
Let's get to that broader fraud fight. You're asking for an expansion of your Medicaid fraud control unit from a head count of 32 to 50. What would that do?
It would help us prosecute fraudsters. It would allow us to do more investigation. We're looking for, there will be a few people who are lawyers. Most of them would be investigators we assessed that the nature of the real challenge is we need more people on the ground, gathering documents, looking for statements, getting witnesses, things like that. And so it would expand our capacity to meet the need and protect the public dollars of the people of the state of Minnesota.
A lot of people aren't familiar with this office, and apparently it's had hundreds of cases move through it since you took office, and
about 325 or more. I mean, I don't keep count of the numbers on a daily basis, but these are convictions. We've convicted these people and do so on a regular basis.
And then your
But
office,
this is the Medicaid fraud program. It's not all fraud.
right?
Brian, it's important for me to make sure that people know that the Attorney General's office does not have general jurisdiction to prosecute any crime.
Should you have?
Maybe we should. But what we have now under Minnesota statute is the right to original jurisdiction on the Medicaid fraud cases. So, for example, you take the Feeding Our Future case. My office would have to be, by statute, referred that case by state authorities before I could prosecute it, if you understand what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So people might think, well, didn't you prosecute the George Floyd case? Yes, I did, because that case I was brought in by Attorney General, by Mike Freeman, and I was appointed by the governor. But it wasn't just, that's my case and I'm taking it. In order to prosecute a non-Medicaid fraud case, I must be brought in by the county attorney.
So your office says that of those cases that have already gone through, you've had $60 million or so in civil recoveries and $32 million in civil and criminal restitution. So that's about $92 million. Where does that money go?
That money goes to the victims, because restitution goes to the victims of crime. And maybe the victim is a state agency, but it goes to victims and it goes to the general fund. So
there's debate about this unit right now over funding for those additional staff members, whether it's temporary or guaranteed for the long term. Well, can this be done successfully without a permanent commitment?
Well, it's based on a federal program, which every Attorney General office has, except for maybe 3 or 4. And the federal program requires that the feds will put up $3 for every $1 the state pledges. So the state must pledge its 25%. And if they don't, we don't get that 3/4. So yeah, the state must make the pledge. They must make the commitment to fund the program in order for us to get the federal match. And the state must do that, or we don't get the expansion. And therefore, we don't have as many people as we need to prosecute the level of fraud that is going on in the Medicaid fraud program.
Moving more into politics here, you explored the possibility of running for a different office this year, but are seeking a third term as Attorney General. What are you hoping to accomplish if voters give you that 4-year hitch?
I'm hoping to accomplish something very basic and simple: help Minnesotans afford their lives, help them deal with the prices, help them deal with wage theft challenges, help them deal with fair and competitive markets. That's part of the antitrust work we do. We're talking about under the Live Nation case we just brought a few days ago. Also, we have antitrust cases going with regard to John Deere, with regard to AgriStats and others like that. We will continue to stand up for the people of the state of Minnesota when it comes to federal overreach. All these things are happening now, right now. So in my view, for me to just abandon the office and not run for a re-election would be a dereliction of duty. I feel like I need to run, and I need to continue at least until this particular political moment is past.
You had a couple of nail biters. Expecting another one this time?
Yeah. I mean, look, I used to be the congressman for the 5th Congressional District, and I used to win by 25 points or something like that.
A little more than that, I think.
Maybe more, but I put it like this. By 8 o'clock, it was pretty clear what the outcome was going to be. Not nowadays. Statewide is a lot more challenging. Minnesota's a more purple state than most people around the country think it is. But I'm here to represent all of Minnesota, whether you are an urban person in a blue area or a conservative person in a red area. I'm your AG, and I'm here to protect you from the threat of opioids, from fraud, from wage theft, from hikes to insulin prices. These are all things we're fighting every day to protect every Minnesotan from.
So you've in the past warned your fellow Democrats about buying too much into the idea that a good electoral environment will pan out. And I'm thinking specifically of your 2016 Be Careful What You Wish For with then candidate Donald Trump. What do you want to say to members of your party this year at this point in the campaign?
Let me tell you, man, ever since I ran for Attorney General, and even before that, when I was in Congress, I have been focused on a fair economy, affording your life. That's on every piece of work that I do. It is, I instruct my staff that our job is to help make sure that people can afford their lives. And Democrats, I think, would be wise to think about prices, wages, competitive markets and economies. We have lost about 1,200 dairy farms in the state of Minnesota in the last couple of years. This is because of Donald Trump's tariffs. It's also because of just increased fuel prices and inputs like fertilizer. And we're not just losing economically, we're losing culturally, because we are connected to the land in the state of Minnesota. We do care about our agricultural environment and rural economies. And so I urge Democrats to think about how to make the economy stronger for the average working person. And I could go on the same line about healthcare. We got a lot of healthcare challenges.
But how much are you worried about people measuring those drapes right now as they're looking at Donald Trump's poll numbers? And
never measure the drapes. Never measure here's the thing. We shouldn't campaign to win the election. We should campaign to meet more Minnesotans and talk to more Minnesotans and listen to more Minnesotans about what their lives are about and the challenges that they face. So if you're measuring the drapes, it's because you think you're going to win an election. Don't do that. Keep on every single day talking and listening to the people of our state about their challenges, about their families, about their businesses, about their lives, about the medications that they can't afford, about the educations that are out of reach. That's what we should be focusing on, and we should never stop doing that.
Attorney General Keith Ellison, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for coming in.
You got it, brother.